and we're going to be live with Mastermind with Neil Schwartz. We have been doing this since March 17th, you guys. March 17th. We've been interviewing great agents like Dan, getting all the insights, all the information, etc. And you know, Albert, I think Dan's going to be speaking right to you about follow-up and converting transactions and getting deals, okay? So you and Dan are going to have this conversation here. Dan's going to be talking right to you, baby. All right, so Dan Evans, welcome to our group, Mastermind with Neil Schwartz. I appreciate your time, all the energy that you put into this and to the organization. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
No, it's very, very cool. So Dan, let's do a little bit of Reader's Digest version of, you know, your marketplace, maybe some of the business that you've done in the past, how long in the business, where your business does come from. That would be really helpful for the group, okay?
Terrific. Yeah, I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been in real estate since 2001. I started right before 9/11, and I was fresh off the boat. I was 21 when I started, and I got into real estate because I saw a Mike Ferry tape from my brother, who is my partner as well, and saw that and basically thought I'd get rich almost immediately. So when I saw that I could make money in real estate, I jumped in and then was mediocre for a very long time and started doing coaching and accountability. And that took off my career, basically. So I've been doing it really for 19 years.
Good for you. So kind of starting with, so before real estate, what were you doing?
I mean, I was a little bit of school. I did an LDS mission, and I was in high school.
Where did you do the mission to? Where'd you do the mission to?
Napa Valley area.
Oh, good. So the real Wild West.
Yeah, exactly. It was rough. Yeah, just terrible times out there in the.
How did you get that? And other friends went to Guatemala.
I just pay a little extra money. That's all.
Is that what it was? Okay, I got it.
No luck.
Dad donated a little more. Okay, I got it. That's fantastic. So, so started with that. So, what got you into real estate? I wasn't clear. I mean, what was the,
Well, so I had gotten off my mission and started school and just didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. And frankly, I was like, I didn't want to incur a bunch of student debt. And so I looked at it and I thought, oh, I'll do real estate while I go to school. And then school never happened and real estate happened. So it truly happened where I saw one of my brother's Mike Ferry tapes from way back when, and I heard it and I just loved it.
How old's your brother? Is he older than you?
Yeah, he is 48 and I'm 41.
Got it. Okay. So he had been selling real estate before you got out of off your mission, I guess.
Yeah, he'd been selling real estate for 6 or 7 years at that point.
Got it. Fantastic. Was he following Mike the whole time, or did he catch into that a little bit later on?
I think he caught into that a little bit later on. Following Mike's probably a loose thing where he'd watch the videos, but I think in practice, not doing a lot of it. But he had at least the tapes.
And you got a hold of the tapes, listened to it, and said, "Hey, I like that. Let's do that."
Yeah, I thought, oh, why not? And then, like most people, didn't realize how hard or how much work it would take.
Okay, so first year in business, you were getting business 20 years ago from where?
Expired listings was probably 100% of my business the first several years. And I mean, it was mediocre. It was a handful of transactions that first year and then less than 20 for a couple of years.
So handful means like, 7 or 8 transactions a year for the first few years?
Yeah.
Almost all expireds?
Yeah, just that first year was, I think, 6. And then 20, I was in the 20s for a little bit, then spent some time in the 40s and 50s. And then the last couple of years have taken off.
But when you say taken off, how much business in 19?
In 19, I did 81. And then this year trending for over 100.
Wow. Fantastic. Even in all the COVID stuff?
COVID's been a wonderful thing. Yes.
Wow.
COVID's been the best.
If there isn't a common thread, or there is a common thread between all of the people we've interviewed, every one of them, with maybe one exception that I can think of, has said exactly the same thing, that COVID has been the best thing. I have to be careful how I say this, but it's been
Yeah, true.
good for their business.
I would say I've sold more luxury homes in the last 5 months than the last 2 years combined.
Wow.
Um, it's been incredible. I
Wow.
mean, COVID,
Fantastic.
like you said, it's been bad. You hate to, you don't want to discount it. Bless the people that have had it, but it's
Mm,
been really good for real estate.
good. And well, certainly real good for you,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of agents that it hasn't been good for, right? You probably,
Yeah.
yeah, probably know some.
Yeah. I know a few to a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you typically do high end? Is that where the business is for you? What's the typical price point for you?
Yeah. It's been trending upward. I mean, I about 5 years ago made a conscious decision to, if I was going to go knock on an expired's door or call an expired or knock on a FSBO's door or call on a FSBO, it had to be above my average price point.
Okay.
And then if it was over a million, because our average price in our area is around 400. And
Hmm.
so if it was over a million, I especially got excited. And so I prospect luxury communities every day now.
So that's what you're doing now. That's your focus now. But that
Yeah.
wasn't that way for you, what, 5, 6 years ago?
No, it was just kind of whatever I could get. And I mean, you have database and COI that send you stuff. And as I've gotten older, my database has, I think, progressed financially too. But it's been a
Okay.
conscious focus the last little bit,
Okay.
like 5 years.
All right. So, so the source of your business 5 years ago was still past, expireds and for sale by owners.
That's 20%. The rest of it was just listed, just sold. And then majority's always been PC COI for me. And that's still the same now. But it's just my PC COI is a little bit better healed financially than they used to be.
So the past client in Sphere Base, like you've been doing this for 20 years, 19 years. You started with expireds and for sale by owners. You did that business. You put it into. Did you start following up from the very beginning, or was some period of time where you just kind of didn't do that at the
Uh,
level you're doing it today?
like if a period of time is like a decade, then we'll call that a period of time. So yeah, I didn't do it for a long time. I would say most people didn't know I existed after our transaction unless I was friends with them. I am not a model of how to start a career and trying to work into how it is right now.
Well, I appreciate that, because a lot of a lot of us are kind of in a similar place where we've spent a good part of our careers where we're not doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing when we're supposed to be doing it. And you've been an example of that. And yet, here you are. When did you kind of get it?
I was talking to another agent in our office about this. It didn't really click because I've been going to Mike Ferry retreats since the Palm Springs days. So I mean that's 16 years. It didn't really click until um, probably until about 6 or 7 years, probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when someone just said that they had transformed their career when they started realizing they needed to expose who they were and not hide behind the veneer of being a great agent. So what they basically said is you need to own your production, even if it's not good, so that you can jump into a higher level. And once accountability started increasing, and once I became vulnerable to that, where I didn't pretend like I was some great agent, that's when things took off. So it was massive accountability, and that also came with exposing myself to people who were doing way better than me, which put me way out of my comfort zone. And that's when things changed.
So Dan, so explain that, because I think that's what you said is very important. You, even though you weren't being as productive as you could be before that, you were kind of wearing the suit, if you will,
Totally.
that you were this great, productive, great agent, but it wasn't as good as you were or good as you could be. And when you own that and say, okay, I am who I am, here's my production, here's what I do, and I can do better, is when it changed for you. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cause like you can go to a Mike Ferry event or even around town and you sell 30, 40 homes. And I mean, you can kind of like people might think you do better than you are. And I think I coasted on that for a long time. It's just a lot of ego, basically. And then when you start hanging around real producers and you realize that they are the most vulnerable and usually the most open to feedback, that's when a light kind of went off. And it was like one day I saw my little son who was 1 or 2, and every day I'd come home from work and he'd have a new trick that he had learned or knew something. And I was like, oh, I've settled for like 10 years. I need to start picking it up. And all those things kind of came together at once. So then I started role playing, started working on my presentation, and really started honing my database stuff too.
So you started taking this whole thing serious.
Yeah, I stopped. I stopped donating to the Mike Ferry charity and actually started getting my money's worth out of it.
Good for you. Good for you. So let's talk more about that mindset, because I think we all at our different levels are there. I remember Karen Bernardi telling us one time when she was something around 75 or 80 transactions, and I was on a call with her, and she realized, she says, she woke up one day and she says, oh my God, if I really knew how to sell, what could be possible? I remember that day like it was just yesterday. It kind of sounds like you had one of those moments too.
Yeah, and I mean, and frankly, I still suck. I'm not good by any means, but I'm trending upwards.
Yeah,
And
you're
so,
failing at a really high level.
trying to, yeah. But there's a real arrogance in being in the middle production pack where you think you're just so awesome and really you're just kind of mediocre, but you don't want to open yourself up to what awesome looks like. I don't know how to really describe it, but I look back and I'm embarrassed by how I was.
So what were some of the first steps you took? Take us through a couple of the first things. I mean, was it the scripts? Was it the previewing the property? Was it learning the financing? Was it learning the statistics? What was there a step-by-step thing here?
I mean, and some of it's also lucking into it where you're in the industry. And so even being kind of a dummy, you pick up on stuff. But that year I started getting into a role play group. So that was number one, to where I was role playing every day. I memorized the scripts. I was chanting the listing presentation every day. And it's funny is that my confidence soared as far as going and talking to people because I did that. And then it went to memorizing the objection handlers so that when I go and knock on a door, I really don't care what they say because you're armed with whatever you need to say. And then as I just kind of started to realize who I wanted to be around and who I wanted to be, my price range started to go up a little bit and I started being comfortable. And once you start selling some of those nicer homes, everything else seems a lot easier. Like there's no intimidation really.
That's great. That is a great story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you started 2020 with a goal to do what?
110 sales.
110. So you started the year with 110 sales. January and February, where I guess were pretty good as it was for most people, right?
Yeah, normal months. Yeah.
Yeah, normal months, things were happening. And then mid-March, things kind of started to change somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So did that, clearly you're doing well with it, but was there a moment, a day, a week where it goes, whoa, what am I going to do here?
Yeah, when they announced the quarantine, God, that was mid-March. I remember I was on a trip with my wife and kids, and I was listening to a podcast about basically it was a Keller Williams podcast about, and I'm not in Keller Williams, but it was about the shift in the market, and they were talking about slashing expenses. So like that day, we sat down, we slashed a bunch of expenses, and then I talked to my wife. I said, hey, I don't know how this is going to look, but I remember 06, 07, 08, and I think it's going to be similar to it. So I need to start working more hours. So then it was just nose to the grindstone, and it was a lot of calling. I mean, that was probably the best 2 prospecting months of my whole career were mid-March to mid-April and mid-April to mid-May.
Wow. Just talking to everybody you know in your past client and sphere base?
Yeah. And then after about a week in, I started to notice that some of our high-end listings that had been languishing were starting to get a ton of attention. So then I immediately thought, oh man, I see what's going on, and started calling every expired I could that was high-end, every past client I had that was high-end, asking for referrals for sellers. And it just kind of took off. I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. So the 2 things: you cut expenses,
I
Smart.
cut
Very,
expenses
very
because I
smart.
thought we were in for the long haul.
No. That's, you
Yeah,
have to do that. Absolutely. 100%. And you then sped up the production. So lower
yep.
expenses, more production.
Hmm.
All right. Really, really smart. Was it past client sphere? Was it expireds? Who are you talking to there?
It was a lot of PCCOI. I was calling close to 20 or 30 a day at that point.
Yeah.
Just basically, well, once I started seeing the high end stuff popping, I mean, I like to play blackjack once in a while. And it's kind of like when you go on a run, you don't want to stop the run. You want to kind of double down and do more. So at that point, I figured there was going to be a run on high end homes from people coming from the Bay Area, Chicago, New York. So tried to get as many listings as I could, or tried to place as many transactions together as I could.
Good for you. Good job. So what do you see? So now we're settling out a little bit. We're still in the COVID. We still don't have a vaccine. But how do you see the balance of the year? What's your plan? Because you're gonna probably go through 100 and go past 110, 115 transactions, right?
Yeah. So the goal right now is just keeping our pedal to the metal there. I'm a partner with my brother, and so we have a couple of staff that are fabulous. And part of it is making sure they're like we're trying to build a Ferrari while we're going 110 miles an hour, and so we're trying to get that thing built up too. So the biggest is just I think my mindset has shifted to just go out and hunt and hunt and hunt all day. Just get new listings as much as you can.
Got it. And how's that working for you?
I love it. And I mean, it's one of those things where once you start to see some of the pieces on the chessboard, you just try to put them in the right spot. So I'm calling more people without any fear than I used to, and just trying to maintain that. So yeah,
So
it's
the
been good
pet
so far.
That's good. That's good. So product knowledge, knowing the
Yes.
marketplace. Do you still preview property?
Yeah, I'll go by if I don't have an appointment. But even then, I like to stop by if there's an expired or a FISBO. I still do if there's one above my average price point. I'll go stop by it if I can. So I try to do one of those a day, and then the flat fee brokers. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll go preview flat fee broker listings and leave my card there and say call me for feedback,
Right.
which may or may not be good. But anyway, that's been a nice source of business too.
Interesting. Very interesting. Smart. But you're out previewing property. You're out looking at inventory. You know what's going on in the marketplace, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, excellent. So that's what's helping propel you to, so you know what to say, you know how to say it. Clearly, you know how to put a transaction together. So you're just out in the streets talking to people, either on the phone or in the streets, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So are you doing more? Do you see yourself doing more activities as you push through the finish line here?
Yes. It's funny is now, you know how it is. Like when you raise a level, the lower level feels slower. Like, I'm almost
Well,
thinking like,
tell me what you mean there. What does that mean?
like remember back the Nokia phones that had the game Snake on them? And I remember when I got my first Nokia phone and I played that game Snake, and you go on the fastest level, and then you play that for a while, and you go back to any level, and it feels microscopic and slow. And that's kind of how it is. Where once I started doing a lot more activity during the day during the pandemic and the quarantine, that's carried over. Where now I feel like I'm slacking off if I'm not like just doing massive amounts of action.
Good for you. Good
But I
job.
mean,
Excellent.
again, I'm still could be much, 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 much better.
So what does your day look like? What time do you get up in the morning? Do you read? What do you pour into your head? Because I guess I would suspect that there are days you don't feel like doing this.
Just a lot of days where I'd be rather be golfing or doing other things. So my day, most days start around either 5 or 5:15, depending on if we had kids wake up during the night. But the alarm set for 5, and I'm out of bed by 5:15, worst case.
Okay.
And then I'm usually doing some form of meditation right off the bat. I'll get a glass of water. Depending on how much time I have, I'll do a 20-minute one, and if it's lower, then it's a 5-minute one. And that's also been a big game changer the last 3 years, has been daily meditation for me, has been really big. And then after that, I'm working out. I get done with the workout about 6:30, 6:45, get ready, and I'm in the office 7:30 to 7:45. I do admin, and I'm on the phones a little bit before 8. Role play at 8:30, and then back on the phones till 11, 11:30.
Okay, very cool. But you still role play. You're 20 years in the business. You're doing 100 transactions a year, and you're still role playing. Do you do it every day or not every
Yeah,
day? Every
every
day.
day. That's non-negotiable now. 8:30 to 9 for me. And I mean, that may change in the future, but at least the role play group I'm in, it's nice not to have to schedule it. It's nice not to have to hunt people down. It's nice just to say, okay, my role play partner is X for the week. That's great. So that's non-negotiable, 8:30 to 9 every day.
Wow, fantastic. Very cool. Good for you. And then how about the prospecting time?
So I'm in a prospecting, we have a Google Hangout group. And so I have to log on by 8 a.m. on our Google Hangouts. And then I have to stay on till 11:30 every day on the Hangouts.
Or what?
And uh, death. No, it's usually a penalty. And so we used to do fines. We've done other penalties, but it's a group of 5 of us. And that's been pretty transformative too, where you don't want to let those people down. You know, you're accountable to them. And it's also just an extra layer when you want to deal with admin, or you want to negotiate a contract, or you want to get off track, like you have that keeping you roped in.
Interesting. Very cool. Good. Past client and sphere base, how big is it?
1,500.
Wow. So that's an accumulation over 20 years.
It is. And it's been, and that's something it's been always a process that we're working on how to best attack it. Right now we do, I call it 15 to 20 a day. And then we email twice a week to our database. One's a listings email of our best listings. And then we do a stats email later in the week. And then, quarterly mailers. So we can be better though.
Got it. And so if you got 1,500, by Mike's numbers, you should be doing 150 deals.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm underachieving on that, and that's why it's been a process for us.
Failing at a high level again.
Yeah, gross.
Exactly.
And a lot of that is we're like right now we are trying to like micro label our past clients so we know exactly our group.
Okay.
That's where we're missing is I'll call someone, I don't know who in the world it is, and I have to like look up their transaction. So we're trying to get it to where it's like MVPs, A clients, B clients, people I don't know that I have to look up.
Got it. And in that 1,500, there are people that maybe you should clean out.
Yeah, a lot.
Or
Yeah.
or do you guys do that regularly?
It's an ongoing. What we need to really refine is just the labeling process. So if I don't know someone or I don't look forward to talking to them, I take them off.
Okay. All right. Good. Do you do this with a CRM? How do you? Because that'll be a question somebody will ask later for sure.
Ooh, that's a good question. And how Mike always says there's no magic bullets or no magic.
Right.
We are always looking for a magic CRM, and we have yet to find it. But we have one called A-Frame Online, and that's the CRM we use. But any of the people watching this, I am open for feedback or open for suggestions. But that is our database, our CRM, and also our transaction management system.
Oh, wow. So it's got,
yeah.
it has all those functions in there?
Yeah. So like when I open it up, it's a web browser page, and it'll have a dashboard of our pendings, coming soons, actives, and then dollar volume transactions. And then I can go into the search and look up any client.
Very cool. Good. All right. So Dan, what's your superpower?
I would say, God, you feel like a kind of a. Anyway, I would say if I were good at anything, I would say I'm good at connecting people and looking. I would say problem solving. So connecting people and problem solving is where I'm good. We're like going back to the pandemic. Once I started to see, and I'm good at pattern recognition, but I guess that's because I'm a human and that's in our DNA. But like once I started to see that some of these high-end listings were popping, I immediately was like, okay, who do I know that has something like this? And that led to like 6 deals right away. So that's
Mhm.
something I'm really good at.
So kind of anticipating a little bit.
A little bit, and
Yeah,
and just pattern recognition, but I'm good at connecting people where I may not remember someone's name, but I'll know that they know someone else for some reason. That's always kind of stuck in my head.
that's great. So when you go take a look at these for rent by owners or for sale by owners, or these properties that are with the flat fee brokers, et cetera, et cetera. When you see these properties and you're out looking at them, is there ever a time where you can think of, wow, that house might be for Susie, or that property might be for Johnny, or wow, that property reminds me of, I got to go call John because of another deal completely. Does that happen?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of it is just that database of knowledge, or that bank of knowledge,
Mhm.
is like you go into a home, and now anymore, most neighborhoods, I've been through a home or know someone in the neighborhood or something, to where it kind of removes that initial barrier where they think, hey, you don't know what you're doing. And when I'm like, yeah, I went through that neighbor's house and it was $850,000, suddenly they're like, oh, okay. Because I mean, the for sale by owners think they have something on you because they think you don't know what you're talking about, and that disarms them completely, or at least initially.
So intentionally or unintentionally, previewing property over the years pays handsomely for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, isn't that great? Interesting. All right, good stuff. Okay, Robert, do we have any questions in the chat rooms? Anything come up?
So,
So,
question came up, Dan, comes up all the time. For a new agent starting out, what would you suggest to them?
Get out of your office. That would be the biggest thing. Is like Kathy. I had a coach. She would always say mornings are in house, afternoons are out house, and that was the best advice I think I've ever gotten. Was like, your mornings are prospecting, and get out there, get to know people. I mean, so even if you don't have appointments, go get to know people, go spend time previewing, go knock doors, whatever you have to.
but get
But
out of the house.
once
Get
you're
out of the
once you're
office, get out of the house.
get out of the office, and once your product knowledge is up, like, people will listen to you. Like, I'll talk to strangers, and we'll find out where they live, and I'll know like 2 or 3 homes that have sold in their neighborhood, and that is a great way to enhance your database, because like, holy crap, this guy knows that. Wow.
Knowledge is confidence, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. All right, appreciate that. All right, other questions for Dan? Dan Evans from Salt Lake City. Monica, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes. So Dan, thank you so much for sharing everything. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you saw the trend of the luxury homes that were popping. Can you elaborate exactly how that came about?
Good question. So I mean, we're in Utah, where everyone thinks that we all live on like an acre of land. But what happened is that Salt Lake area has kind of a burgeoning tech scene, and so it was like in mid-March. I had a Facebook executive reach out to me and say he was thinking about relocating, because he's like, we're going to shut things down for probably a year. And once that happened, and some of our listings that were $1 or $2 million that were sitting there and not getting a lot of attention, once he did that and we saw a little uptick in showings, became clear that that was going to be a huge thing for the next several months. And that's borne out. I mean, the luxury market in Salt Lake has never been hotter. But that's
Wow.
because people from California are coming from their 1,500 square foot, $2 million home. They're like, you can get this for $2 million. You can get 8,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet. So once that hit, it's been really easy to prospect those price ranges.
Um,
And they don't need to commute to work, so they can go to Salt Lake City.
Exactly right. And when you're calling these high-end neighborhoods that get hit up pretty often with callers, and you say, hey, with a lot of confidence, hey, your home is going to sell and we could probably get 2 or 3 buyers on it, it makes a really easy conversation if they're interested.
nice. Okay. So you were paying attention. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
I'll bet. Go ahead.
homes that I was calling the seller, and I'm like, yeah, no showings this week. And suddenly we had 6 showings, and that was across all of those luxury homes. It became obvious what was happening.
Oh, got it. Okay. I really appreciate you elaborating on that. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Good job. Monica, on that thought,
Mhm.
it's very possible the same thing could be happening in Norco and Corona.
That's exactly why I was asking. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, when I get done here, I'm right on to InfoSparks to check it out. Good
Sounds
stuff.
Yeah.
All right, good, Dan. Appreciate it. Other questions for Dan, please? Other questions for Dan?
So another question came in, Dan, was follow-up. If you get a lead, how often do you follow up with them? How many times do you follow up with them? What's the plan?
Oh boy. So I'm really good with short-term follow-up. I'm terrible with long-term follow-up. So short-term, if it's a 3 weeks or less, I am on them like a shark on another fish, and I won't let them go until they tell me to go away or I get an appointment. But if it's like, hey, 2, 3 months out, that's what I'm currently working on improving, because I would say I'm so honed down on the short-term stuff. I leave a little bit of the long-term on the table, but I'll call and text. I have no problem calling 2 or 3 times a day or texting them. And usually, if I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, I'll usually text them and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I don't want to drop the ball on this. I know you're trying to trust me with your house. And usually they'll respond with that, with a yay or nay, or with a different agent or whatever it is.
Okay, cool, good. Dan, one of the agents was asking me earlier today. I'll ask you the question. I mean, what's your favorite objection handler? What do you, when you get this objection or this situation, you use this in your career many times, and it tends to always work for you or mostly work for you?
Oh man, it's the one I used to be the most scared of, which was a for sale by owner that would say, hey, I'm getting a lot of activity. I can handle this on my own. And
Interesting.
from the retreat 3 years ago, that objection handler, if you want me to give it to you, I'll just give it. Like, I know it
Please.
basically by memory. So it's like, hey, I can appreciate that. And selling in this market really isn't the problem, right? Like, your home's going to sell, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's maybe a problem you haven't considered, though. Did you know that in our current market, we have more escrow fallouts than we've ever had before? We've had more babysitting of the buyer, more drama, more lender issues. Now we have more appraisal issues than ever before. Did you know that was going on?
No, I really didn't.
No. And did you know that homes that are selling with us are selling with 4, 5, 6, 7 offers on them as well?
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So would you rather just sell your home, or would you rather sell your home for the most amount of money with the least amount of hassle? Which would you prefer?
Well, yeah, I like the latter better for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, you pay me to make you more money, right?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Exactly. Let's do the right thing and meet, or sign the contract, or whatever
Something
it is.
like, got it,
Yeah.
got it, got it. Great, excellent. So up to 3-4 years ago, when you would hear that, you would say, okay, thank you very much.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like you got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess you are good. Okay. But now
So
it's just an open.
it's just an opening for you to go in and have that conversation with them.
Oh yeah,
And then it just opens some more doors.
absolutely. And if they're motivated, then they listen. I mean, and following the Mike Ferry, not that that's the end all be all, but that survey script
Mhm.
has really become a powerful tool. I resisted saying I'm giving a survey because you just feel stupid saying it if you don't sound like you really mean it. That is like the great separator between motivated and unmotivated for sale by owners for me.
How's that?
Like, if they respond favorably, I know they're motivated to sell their home. And if they are like, no, like, then usually I don't think they're going to be that motivated.
Okay, and then that way you can move on to somebody else.
Well, exactly. Because there's some people who just, no matter what I say, they won't hire you. And it's nice to know that within like 20 seconds of talking to them rather than waste your
Okay.
time.
So let's talk about that for just a second. And you bring the have to buys and the have to sells versus the want to buys and the want to sells. So how are you sorting through that? Because sounds like you're running through a number of leads, and you could be spending a lot of time on the not have tos, and that would kind of cut into your business. So how do you measure that? And are there anything that you have to ask or make sure you ask before you go further?
Yeah, absolutely. And that distinction seems to shift by almost like every quarter, where like a year ago, if you were not a have to sell, it just wasn't, I mean, it was starting to flatten out a little bit. And now it's not so much that as much as if you don't have to sell, it's kind of a pain to find a house right now. And so if you have to sell, then you're going to be motivated to go through the hassle of finding your replacement house too. So that's shifted a little bit, where if people want to sell, but they have no option to buy it and they're not motivated to really work hard, then that's usually a pretty good differentiator. I mean,
Wow.
so yeah, we're very much in like a greed with some benefits market, at least here in Salt Lake.
Got it. Good. Good. Any other questions for Dan before we wrap it up here? Other questions? All right. Guess you answered everybody's question, Dan. Fantastic. We really appreciate your time. Really good information. I know I took a bunch of notes. I'm sure others did too. I want to thank you very much, very, very much for your time today. And what I'd like to do now is we typically go into like a little, what did you learn from our group? So, but before we do that, everybody unmute yourselves and give Dan a really big hand. Good job. Woo!
Sounds good,
All
buddy. Hey,
right.
thanks, guys.
Woo-ah, woo-ah. You're welcome to hang around, or we'll catch you another time. We're going to put your information in our chat box. You don't mind referrals occasionally, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind those one bit.
Okay,
That's the
good.
other thing that has picked up significantly has been Mike Ferry referrals. Man, you tap into the Mike Ferry referral network. I do probably 12 deals a year out of that now. Like
Wow.
I more than pay for my coaching out of that.
Wow, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a great parting shot. So if you want to stick around, we're going to ask a few
Sure.
questions here. But again, thank you so much. Okay,
Hey, my pleasure.
So thank you. My question is, what did you learn today? What did you get from Dan on today's talk? So who wants to go first? Robert.
Well, first of all, Dan, thank you so much. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you being out here. My first assumption is that Dan was probably really good on his mission. That was probably my first assumption, is that he was probably really, really good on his mission. So that probably worked out nicely. The couple things I got out of this is, just no one says this can't be fun. Dan jokes a lot. He laughs a lot. He jokes about himself. Like you can have fun with this whole thing. And I put in here, he said, there's a lot of arrogance in the mediocre pack. You think you're awesome, but you're really just average. And for real estate, that is just so true, because there's so many agents that do zero business that if you're doing 4 or 5 deals, you're technically one of the higher producing agents in the country. In terms of percentages. So I think that's a really, really neat thing to kind of remind ourselves of.
That was a great piece of information. Absolutely. It was very interesting because, as a 40 deal person, that's not slouchy in most of our markets. Even in Salt Lake, that's not slouchy, but it's not 80 to 100 transactions. That's a whole different level. And it takes a decent amount of humility to bring yourself down to that level and then raise yourself up. So yeah. that was a good point. Okay, what else did we learn today? What else did we learn? Who do we have that wants to share?
So I can go.
Please, Monica.
He prospects luxury communities. I loved hearing that from him. But the biggest one, exposing myself. There's a real arrogance in being in the middle production. So that was huge. That was really big, exposing yourself. And if I can keep going, preview property pays handsomely. I think we've heard that before. And now
never, not on this call. No way. We don't even talk about that.
Oh my gosh. And then, of course, he's for sale by owner objection handler. That was huge. So, yes, great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, very, very good. Excellent. Good. Who wants to go next? Unmute yourself, please, and then jump in there. Who's got it? Who else?
The other thing for me, Neil, was when he said role play at 8:30 is non-negotiable. And why I think that resonates is, you know, he's doing a massive amount of business, and yet he can still make something like role play non-negotiable. And so I guess the question from a coach standpoint, the question that, you know, I would bring out to agents is your role play at 8:30 non-negotiable, or is it, well, you know, if something else is, I can do something else, I'll do it, you know? And he's able to make it non-negotiable and still do 100 deals. That's, you got to make some of those things non-negotiable.
Yeah, it sounded like the prospecting he was doing with his group was non-negotiable too, that made him show up. You know, and I say this all the time. If you will do your job 240 days a year, and do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, which is, you know, role play, which is prospecting, which is previewing property and taking a look at what's going on in the marketplace, you'll crush it in this business. I don't think anybody does that job, or very few people do that job for 240 days a year, but you could really do some good stuff here. And as we get closer to the finish line, I think we really have to think about ramping it up. I mean, the commonality and the message we're hearing, it's almost, I don't want to say it's boring, because it's none of this is boring. These are individuals kicking royal tush, okay? But it's almost like some of us don't want to hear it anymore. Okay, so I got to get up, I got to go to work, I got to do this role play, I got to prospect, and I could make $1 million a year. Yeah, I don't want to hear that crap anymore. Come on, you guys. Hello. Am I missing something here? Am I missing something? How many times do we have to hear this before we take massive action? Massive action. When I started in the business, I've shared this with you 1,000 times. 45 years ago, there was 1 or 2 people in the country that were doing 40 to 50 transactions a year. 1 or 2 that Mike could find doing 50 transactions a year. Now, Dan's telling us that 40 to 50 transactions are mediocre, and that's the middle of the road, so to speak, and that 100 is starting to become great. I had to do this with blind faith. You don't have to do it with blind faith. If you go to events.century21c21masters.com, there are 44, soon to be 45 with Dan, videos of great agents around the country that are doing it all the time. And COVID